Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the show. It is Thursday. My name is Nick Reed. We have Author of the Week coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. That is sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. We will have Christy Fulnecki joining us as well. That will be in the 7 o'clock hour tomorrow. Being Friday, of course, we will be kicking things off at Scramblers. It's where we do that Friday road show. The doors do open at 6 a.m., and we'll be there broadcasting live thanks to Shirley's Heating and Air. Some of the of course, update you on the latest developments regarding what has been occurring with these riots and this increased attempt. It is becoming clear to try and spread on the milder side, protest, on the more extreme side, the riots across the country. It's interesting. We talked about this so-called No King's Day, which is, the left, they have meaningless protests quite often. This isn't unusual. In Springfield, you see them pop up oftentimes outside Congressman Burleson's office, outside City Hall, or for whatever reason, I guess because, well, I don't know why, but on South Campbell, what's that?
I said, oh, that bridge.
Yeah, that bridge, but I don't
always over there.
Yeah, I don't know why they choose that location. I guess they get on that bridge as well.
Yeah, they get on the bridge.
Yeah.
I think it's just because it's a high traffic area.
Yeah, and Steak and Shake's good.
Yeah, that's true.
It's got great food at Steak and Shake, so
I don't know. They probably don't go in there. There's no pleasing those people.
I know. Yeah, who knows what reason they would have against Steak and Shake, but I worked at that Steak and Shake.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I did. Long time ago, I worked at that very Steak and Shake.
You learn something new every day.
Yeah, I didn't know you didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Well, see.
Now, we've had conversations about Steak and Shake,
Yes,
but
yeah, that is the one that I worked at.
that
I was a
you
server
working
there.
has ever popped up.
Yes, indeed. So it really holds a special place when I drive by and I see those idiot protesters out there.
And then you're like, I'm going to get me some fries.
Yeah. So anyway, to the point, these meaningless protests quite often occur. Now, what has happened with this activation of the violent rioters? And at the same time, you have these meaningless activists that are wanting to have this nationwide protest. And so there is the possibility there may be some merging that occurs. We could see, either inspired by the riots, some of these No King's Day people also turn to rioting. Perhaps some of the sleeper cells that we have seen activated in Los Angeles, for example, if they are in other parts of the country, they may work their way into what might otherwise be just meaningless people holding poorly made posters with misspellings on them and turn them violent. We don't know. But what I've noticed is the media is beginning to increasingly talk about the King's Day events to give it attention. But not only that, and here's the telltale sign that the media is wanting it to become something. The news leader, for example, so they have a story about it, right? All right, yeah, okay. No King's protest set for Saturday in Springfield, other Missouri cities. It's a news item. But they tip their hand by putting at the end of the story links to like a listing of all of the cities. Find an event near you so that you will also be able to go participate if you want.
Jeez.
Now, can you imagine? I'm sure in their minds, well, no, that's just newsworthy. So if it was some sort of pro-Doge events across, do we think that outfits like the news leader would put helpful links so that you could participate as well? If you want? Of course not.
You think that they ever write when they do those like Trump flag waves?
Yeah.
And the American flag waves?
Yeah.
Oh, and here's a link.
Yeah, by the way, here's a list of all the places in Missouri you can helpfully, so you can also participate. They just can't help themselves. I mean, it's just, and so what I think the way that the story looks is that this was a deliberate, almost addition, because the story itself that is in the news leader is attributed to Samantha Neely, USA Today Network. All right. And, it's the same people that own USA Today also own the Springfield News Leader. And so the story itself is just about it from a national, it's a national. Oh, here are some events that are going on across the nation. Well, it's at the end of it that has Missouri No Kings protest by city list. According to the No Kings website, over 24 protests planned across Missouri as of June 10th. Find an event near you. And then it has the different cities listed, of course, which Springfield is one. Oh, and then what to know before you attend.
Yeah, I'm on this article now.
Yeah.
Here is tips to make sure that you are properly protesting.
I mean, dress for the weather. I mean, they might as well be the organizers of the protests themselves.
Pack
the way
necessary supplies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, know the environment. Research the location beforehand. Have an offline accessible map to reference if the service is spotty. Have multiple routes into and out of the protest area. This is in the, quote, news article from the news leader. So they are promoting, they are encouraging people to participate. I mean, I guess we all know what trash the news leader is. And how clear it is that they are not they're not an asset to the community. They are not a provider of information. They are an activist wing of the Democrat Party. But, I mean, it's just, I don't guess they even care to try and make it look like they're trying to keep that a secret any longer, where they're offering you helpful tips on how to participate in the anti-Trump events. And this isn't some guest letter to the editor. This is a, quote, news story that they have. What disservice to the community is not a specific or strong enough term to use when it comes to what the news leader does here in Springfield and the surrounding area. I don't know what would be I mean, immoral and unethical. I mean, these clearly are broad terms that certainly cover the behavior of the news leader and its, if you want to call it, contribution to the community. But if you look for more specific terminology, I don't know what term would be best to use that really conveys the dumpster level of trash that they provide here to the community and to just do everything. I mean, I don't, if you were to say, write up, let's say that you worked for, put it this way, let's say you worked for the organizations that are setting up these protests and riots, and you were to say, we need you to make up some sort of flyer, some sort of material to encourage, this is your job to get as many people out as possible. This is about what it would look like. And it's in the news leader as a news, quote, news story. Weather coming up in a moment. Pyramid Roofing Company talk at text line 447 KSGF. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a chance of scattered showers throughout the day with a high near 78. Tonight cloudy with a chance of rain with a low around 67. For your Friday, we'll see a 70% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a high near 77. And looking ahead to Saturday, partly sunny with a high near 85.
There are signs that there could potentially maybe be some sort of attack coming from Israel towards Iran. This would presumably be to take out their nuclear capabilities. Trump has been very clear that there's one thing that will not occur on his watch, or at least he will do everything he can to prevent that, and that is from Iran having nuclear capabilities. And that, incidentally, is something that other Middle Eastern countries are very supportive of. And this didn't get a lot of coverage, but whenever the sham deal, the gift to Iran and their nuclear ambitions that came out of the Obama administration, other Middle Eastern countries announced that that was going to start a nuclear race in the Middle East. And other countries said, if this is the case, then we are going to start trying to develop nuclear weapons as well. Now, that was ignored by the media because we were told, of course, that the opposite was going to happen. This was such a great, monumental step forward for world peace, and that Obama was brilliant, and that the so-called deal was going to prevent Iran from having nuclear weapons, and quite the opposite. It was going to cause a nuclear arms race throughout the Middle East. Great place to have one of those, by the way. And so Trump has come along, and it's like, his approach is the opposite. No, we're going to make sure that they don't have nuclear weapons. Novel idea. And Iran has appeared, while there were times where Trump's trying to signal, hey, looks like maybe they're willing to talk on this thing. At the same time, there are very strong signals that Iran is like, no, we're going to do whatever we want to do. Kind of have a death wish. So there's not a lot of leverage over us. The reports are that there could soon be an attack from Israel against Iran, as CBS News is reporting, citing multiple sources. This comes as Stephen Green at PJ Media reported earlier the U.S. has been anticipating heightened tensions, and the Trump administration, via Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, has authorized the voluntary departure of military dependents from locations across the Middle East. As the CBS News report mentioned, U.S. officials have been told Israel is fully ready to launch an operation into Iran. The U.S. anticipates Iran could retaliate on certain American sites in neighboring Iraq. This is part of the reason the U.S. advised some Americans to leave the region earlier Wednesday, with the State Department ordering non-emergency government officials to exit Iraq due to, quote, heightened regional tensions. President Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, still planning to meet with Iran for 6 rounds of talk on the country's nuclear program in the coming days, 2 U.S. officials said. Green explained the authorization more fully in his piece, though such a piece came earlier in the day and also later included an update. Authorized in this case means the State Department will provide and pay for transportation if requested. It isn't like an embassy spouse isn't allowed to travel without permission. Another anonymous U.S. official told The Independent that the Pentagon is on alert to support any potential bug out. Quote, the State Department is set to have an ordered departure for the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. The intent is to do it through commercial means, but the U.S. military is standing by if help is requested. Now, this could mean a number of different things at the same time. The fact that this is occurring while the envoy, Steve Witkoff, is planning to have another round of meetings with the Iranians in order to, put the pressure on them. Things aren't moving forward. And so this is sort of a countdown clock, if you will, or at least is the hope potentially would be that the Iranians would see this as, okay, we can't fiddle around with this any longer. We've got to come up with something. We need to get we need to work out some deal with the Americans so that they tell the Israelis not to move forward with this. Now, with that being said, they could at the same time see it as that and only as that. They could tell themselves, well, this is only to frighten us, so we don't need to worry about it. Now, if this were the previous administration, in all likelihood, that would be their full belief, and they would ignore it, knowing there's no way that, outside of Israel going completely rogue, the United States is going to do everything they can in order to make sure this doesn't happen. Let's not forget, it was the previous administration that not only protected Iran, but was allowing them billions and billions and billions of dollars by waiving sanctions so that they could fund the terrorist attack through Hamas on Israel. Prior to this administration, the Iranians really had no greater ally than the United States, sadly. But it's just the truth in terms of actual meaningful support. Given that Trump is president, that increases the likelihood that the Iranians will believe that not only is this something that is realistically occurring, but at the same time something that Trump will fully support 100%. And Trump's approach on this could fully well be, and I imagine that, it would be this, because the last thing Trump wants, and he has demonstrated this and done more than any other president or world leader in modern history to prevent wars from occurring. His ultimate desire, in all likelihood, if Iran is willing to do this, we're willing to allow them to do it. But you let the Iranians know this is about to happen with the hopes that they do come up with some sort of deal. They are willing to abandon their nuclear desires and to have some sort of monitoring that allows the United States, or would have to in some part be the United States, can't leave it solely to the United Nations, but that there would be some form of monitoring there. And so, like a lot of people recognize and understand it is the threat itself that forces bad players into compliance. But and this is what Trump understands, is that in order for the bad guy to comply, because you say if you don't, here's what's going to happen to you, the bad guy has to know that that bad thing will happen to you, that you will do it, that you are willing to do it. And Trump's track record shows just that. Now, how much of a death wish does Iran have? Is this something that they will ignore? Time will tell. Also over in the Middle East, one of the favorite social groups of the left, Hamas, has attacked a bus of workers from American aid groups in Gaza. The Palestinian terrorist group attacking a bus full of aid workers with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation on Wednesday, killing at least 5 local Palestinians who worked with the group. Several members of the group may have also been taken hostage. In a statement, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation said tonight at approximately 10 p.m. Gaza time, a bus carrying more than 24 members of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation team, local Palestinians working side by side with the U.S. GHF team to deliver critical aid, were brutally attacked by Hamas. At the same time of the attack, our team was en route to one of the distribution centers in the area west of Khan Younis. We're still gathering facts, but we know but what we know is devastating. There are at least 5 fatalities, multiple injuries, and fear that some of our team members may have been taken hostage. We condemn this heinous and deliberate act in the strongest possible terms. These were aid workers, humanitarians, fathers, brothers, sons, and friends who are risking their lives every day to help. Our hearts are broken, and our thoughts and prayers are with every victim, every family, and every person still accounted for. And they know this wasn't in a vacuum. Hamas has openly been threatening the team of aid workers, saying that they were going to do this. Now, where is the passion of coverage by the media when this is occurring? Do you notice that whenever Hamas falsely claims that the IDF is killing aid workers or killing civilians that are simply trying to get food and aid without any evidence whatsoever, the media runs with the story. They beat it into the ground. They make it, such a cause that you get these left-wing activists riled back up. You get the Greta Thunbergs taking their selfie yachts down there in order to, highlight the human atrocities. But when Hamas has for days been saying, we are going to murder these actual aid workers, we are going to murder and potentially take hostage some of these volunteers, and then they go through with it, not much coverage on that at all. And if it does get any coverage, it'll just get mentioned as sort of the standard back and forth fallout. Certainly not anything that defines the reality of what's going on in that part of the world. And we know why this is. The left, a.k.a. the media, for reasons that one can talk about, speculate about, debate about, on and on. But the one thing we know is that they are sympathetic to Hamas, which is why they cover for them, why they promote their cause, they promote their propaganda, and why you see thousands, if not tens of thousands, of left-wing activists across the country protesting in favor of the efforts of Hamas. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Coming up, some more fantastic economic news. And as usual, once again, it defies what the so-called experts predicted, and it has to do with inflation. It is the same pattern over and over again. And one of the things about it is it really truly highlights the people that are actual experts, the people who actually are wanting to get to the truth, because you see people, and Stephen Moore is an example of this, who has been against it. Now, he's a Trump supporter, but when it came to particularly tariffs, he was against them, said these are the bad things that are going to happen. Well, he was proven to be wrong, and he has fully accepted that. It's like, I have been wrong about this. And he openly is questioning where are all these people that are these experts that have been wrong? Where are the mea culpas? Why am I like the only one that admits I was wrong? Well, because there are very few of these people that are the economists, that are the experts, that actually care about the truth. So we got some audio on that coming up. Do want to remind you that we are still in the summer of free fuel from Pinnacle Honda. That's right. Free fuel for the summer grand opening that occurred of their brand new refurbished, and it's not just refurbished, but a whole new incredible upgrade with their open house they had, several weeks ago now. And that kicking off a summer of free fuel when you purchase a new vehicle from Pinnacle Honda. Now, you can lease the new 2025 Honda HR-V for only $285 a month, or the new Honda CR-V for only $298 a month. Hybrid Accord, financing as low as 2.49%, 51 miles per gallon. And this deal that I've been talking about, because it's the sort of deal that resonates with me, the certified pre-owned 0.99% APR, that will end on June 30th. So that sort of interest rate for a certified pre-owned vehicle is, of course, an incredible deal. And that is something that is limited time through the month of June. You could take advantage of that and all their other incredible deals. Great people, great family-owned business. That is Pinnacle Honda on South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a chance of scattered showers throughout the day with a high near 78. Tonight, cloudy with a chance of rain with a low around 67. For your Friday, we'll see a 70% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a high near 77. And looking ahead to Saturday, partly sunny skies with a high near 85.
Economist Steve Moore did an interview. This was on Newsmax, and it was regarding some of the latest inflation numbers and consumer price index, and all of these indicators are doing what consistently occurs. Outperforming for the better what the so-called experts tell us. I know those of you who have listened for years, and you know this, and you have heard me talk about this, that during the Obama years, it became very clear every time numbers would come out. Usually they would get revised, and they would get revised to reflect that they weren't as good as they originally were reported. And they always were worse than the economic experts predicted. Then in Trump's first term, of course, I mean, we had all of these reports, all of these experts. He was going to tank the economy, going to be the Great Depression. They had economic advisors from the Bush administration. It was bipartisan. Everyone understood Trump had no idea what he was doing, and he was right. They were all wrong. Then during the Biden years, once again, flipped on its head. Constantly telling us, no, the economy's fine. It's inflation. It's not really existing. Okay, well, it is. It's transitory. And all of the numbers, all the predictions, again, wrong because they would overpredict in a positive way. And now we're back to the Trump years where the so-called experts are wrong. The one thing about the experts, they are consistent. It's just they're consistently wrong. Economist Steve Moore, in sadly this day and age, is an exception because he is an economist that actually does look for the truth. And he is one who, though he's ultimately overall a Trump supporter, doesn't support everything he does. In fact, he was very vocal in opposition to Trump's approach to the economy going into the second term, particularly when it came to tariffs, talking about this was not going to be good for the economy, that we were going to begin to see the negative impacts of the economy overall. But he was wrong. Stephen Moore, being the rare exception, admits it. Yeah. We were all wrong about this. He was asked on Newsmax, why is it that these economists, these so-called experts, are so consistently wrong? Why is it so hard to find experts that actually know what they're talking about?
Well, I've got to confess, I've been wrong on the inflation numbers over the last 3 or 4 months as well, but at least I'm willing to admit I was wrong.
You were also wrong on the other direction. You said that you said they weren't going to be as good, and then they became better.
Yeah, the numbers got better, and look, it's very clear that Trump, he's just pushing all the right buttons right now. It's hard to find anything in this economy today to complain about. I mean, we have 7 million job openings. We've got a record number of Americans working. Real wages are rising for the first time in 4 years. That inflation number blew me away. I mean, I did think that tariffs would raise prices. They did a little bit, but not much, and that was offset by the fact that the economy is doing really well. We're producing more goods and services, and this is just basic supply-side economics. If you produce more eggs and you produce more oil, guess what? The price of these things go down. Now, I know for people who work for Joe Biden, that was a tough thing to figure out, but I'm glad I was wrong, but I'm just surprised that so many of these people haven't done a mea culpa and said, look, I'm wrong. Remember, by the way, that when Biden started his massive $4 or $5 trillion spending spree, you may recall that there were 12 Nobel Prize economists said, don't worry, this won't cause inflation. And then we had the highest inflation ever. I would think, wouldn't you think these people would just send their PhDs back and say, we don't have any idea what we're talking about?
Oh, yeah, you would. That would be the case if their goal was to really, truly understand and educate people about the realities and the truth of the economy, for example. And, these are professors. This is also a reflection of how horrific our university systems are and how low the standards are. I mean, the standards are not academic for the mass majority of universities in this country. That's not the standard. The standard is liberal activism. That's what matters. It isn't truth. It's not academia. That's why it is that you have these individuals year after year after year after year get invited on the major network because they're just experts. Like Fauci was an expert. Like everyone who said you had to stay 6 feet away from people was an expert, or that getting the COVID vaccine would stop you from getting COVID and passing it on, that a mask, they're experts. That's all that matters. Do not question them. When they are... See, expert, here's the expert is not a label in our society that is indicative of accuracy or knowledge. It is how good of a propagandist are you for the left. That is what makes you an expert. So it doesn't matter whether you're right. It doesn't matter how wrong Fauci was. It doesn't even matter that we would learn through exposed emails and text messages that we now know he knew he was lying and that he coordinated efforts to cover up the truth, successfully so. None of that does not make any difference. He's a left-winger, so he's an expert. And he's allowed to do those things because he knows best. These economists are allowed to go on television as experts year after year, quarter after quarter, on and on through administration after administration, and be consistently wrong because accuracy and truth is not the standard in our culture by which one is considered an expert. It's how good of a job do you do sounding as if Donald Trump is wrong? How good of a job do you do making it sound as if Joe Biden is right? Once you understand that, you really do, just not out of anger or defiance, you tune out. Anytime, and in fact, for me, it's got to the point when I hear expert, and that is presented as the reason I should listen to this person, I tune it out. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't, Stephen Moore is a good example of this, people that really truly are experts in their field, and that is their goal. It is to be an actual expert in the field. It is not to use their title for political purposes. Those people do exist. But anytime, particularly in mainstream media, I mean, you know which ones they're going to find. Number one, what is there, as an expert, what is their track record of consistency? And when they are wrong, because any expert who says that they're never wrong, like Fauci, who declared I am science, automatically dismiss them. Do not listen to that person. That's my recommendation. That's my approach. When there is someone that is on as an expert like Steve Moore, and he says, yeah, I was wrong about this, I was wrong about this, I was right about that, that fully acknowledges it, that's the sort of person you want to listen to. So how often are they wrong? Do they, now if somebody fully admits when they're wrong, but that's 80% of the time, that's someone I also wouldn't listen to because they don't have a very good track record. But the point of, and, he noted that, Biden and the 12, whatever, he's, top economic professors across the country all said there wouldn't be inflation. And when Biden, before his nomination was overthrown by the Democrat Party, you may recall that once again they trotted out this list. There were, I don't remember how many. It seemed like it was more. It was a lot, like 100 and however many economic professors across the country all say that Donald Trump's going to destroy the economy. And it's like, are you serious? We're doing this again? Now, this standard that I speak of that doesn't mean that that is, the standard for you, the standard for me, the standard for certain organizations. But I'm just talking culturally, certainly within the media and within pop culture. Expert simply means that you are, in their assessment, effective on the left of demonizing the right and discrediting the right. Accuracy, consistency, acknowledgement of misjudgment is irrelevant. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. I want to play some audio for you that is part of the debate in the Assembly, Missouri, regarding Senate Bill 3. This is the special session that is doing the tax incentives for the Chiefs and Royals. And we have brought to our attention some time ago by Tom Martz, was Representative Brian Wolfen, who is one of the few, there are a couple, but he's one of the few that actually, when he runs and then he's like, puts his hand on the Bible, gets sworn in, here's what I'm going to do. He's one of the few Republicans that actually sticks with that. So, of course, he's considered, an extremist. He is opposed to this, and he spoke about the reasons before the Assembly. I believe this was yesterday this occurred, and I have some excerpts of it I wanted to share with you. Here he is in somewhat of the opening of his statement on his approach to determining whether legislation is legislation that he's going to be in support of or be opposed to.
So for me, the way I look at this, I come from a Jeffersonian view of government, that the proper role of the state is to protect individual liberty and private property, and that's it. That we exist here to restrain power, not redistribute wealth. That public money should never be handed out to private interests, especially not the ones who are already very well off. It's unfortunate because this bill violates every principle that I came here to defend. It's clearly not conservative. It's definitely not constitutional. It's absolutely not limited government. And quite frankly, it's sure the heck not Republican. My party, the supermajority in this chamber, claims to stand for fiscal responsibility and the free market. Yet, here we are, going to pass a 30-year subsidy bill for billionaires. That sure doesn't look like capitalism to me. It's corporate welfare dressed up as economic development.
In part of his statement, checking the timing on this, he broke down specifically constitutionally areas in which this is in violation of the Constitution.
Article 1, Section 1 of the Missouri State Constitution says that all political power is vested in the people, that government is instituted solely for the good, for their good, not the good for a select few companies, billion-dollar franchises, what have you. Article 1, Section 2 further reinforces that. It promises equal rights, equal benefits of the laws, and a government that's open and accountable. As I stated the first time when we heard this bill in regular session, I heard it was amendment then, that there is nothing equal or accountable about carving out multi-million-dollar tax credits and 30-year funding deals for 2 specific stadiums, while Missouri's small businesses and working families get a tiny little property tax freeze or cap. And it's crazy because it's not even all Missourians. And then there's Article 3, Section 38A, that says very clearly that the General Assembly has no power to grant public money or credit to private entities. Yet that's exactly what this bill does. Whether it's in the form of refundable tax credits or direct appropriations, we are literally handing out public money to private sports teams that, by the way, already make massive profits. We've stated that multiple times. But also, let's not forget Article 3, Section 40, subsection 30, which bars the General Assembly from enacting special laws when a general law can be made applicable, especially in this instance when it involves giving public money and credit to private corporations. So, once again, that's exactly what this bill does. This isn't a broadly applicable economic policy. It's literally a tailor-made package of subsidies and tax credits designed specifically for 3 professional sports teams. It creates a carve-out for a privileged few rather than applying a general rule for the public good. This kind of special legislation is precisely why this section, Article 3, Section 4030, was written what it was written to prevent. When we write laws for specific corporations instead of the general welfare, we violate both the spirit of the Constitution, but also, even worse, we send a message that says the Chiefs, the Royals, and the Cardinals deserve more than every other American. Or Missourian, excuse me. And now, with all the other additional provisions rolled in this bill from the Senate, we also have another constitutional issue, which is Article 3, Section 23, a.k.a. my best friend, the single subject rule. It states that no bill shall contain more than one subject, which shall clearly be expressed in its title. But this bill isn't just about the stadium funding anymore. It's about property tax caps, disaster credits, amateur sports reimbursements, refundable income tax procedures, and some more on top of that. That does not sound very single subject to me. That is clearly a shopping cart full of unrelated items. But of course, who are we kidding? We've constantly passed legislation violating that principle all year long already, so I guess we could just continue to ignore that anyways.
All right, so again, that is Representative Brian Wolf. And incidentally, he represents the eastern side of the state. His district covers Perryville. He's between St. Louis and Cape Girardeau, but he doesn't go from like South St. Louis to Cape Girardeau, but he's between the two to give you an idea of where he is. This is his first term, by the way, local small business owner. He owns a couple like convenience stores. I want to play a couple other bits of audio as he explains why it is that he and Republicans should be opposed to this emergency legislation that deals with the taxpayer funding and incentives for stadiums, Chiefs, Royals specifically. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Let's see if I can. We're going to play one last bit of audio here. This is Representative Brian Wolfen. He is a constitutional Republican that serves an area on the east side of the state. We're playing clips of audio. He explaining there in the assembly why it is that Republicans should be voting against this legislation regarding taxpayer incentives and funding for stadiums.
What we're doing here today with Senate Bill 3 isn't just wrong, it's dangerous. Because it tells the people of Missouri that the Constitution only matters when it's convenient, that principles are optional, and that the rule of law can be bent to avoid that bad headline. So I want to say this again, I've preached this all year, that the proper role of government is to protect liberty, not to rig the economy in favor of the well-connected and the well-off. But this bill does exactly that. It doesn't offer broad tax relief to hardworking Missourians. It offers the sweetheart deal to the team owners, wrapped in the language of economic development, because they have the political clout and the capital to demand it. So if you're a small business struggling with rising costs, the state says, nah, you'll be fine. But if you're the billion-dollar franchises in this state threatening to leave town, well, suddenly that checkbook opens wide open. That's not capitalism. Might I remind you, that is cronyism. The government picking winners and losers using Missourians' money. And it's happening all under the watch of a legislature that claims to be for limited government and a free market.
Now, we'll get a listing of how everyone voted on this. We'll get it posted up area, but I thought I'd give you a quick rundown of some of the area state reps on this in the assembly. And this is, let's see, the first extraordinary session. This is third reading. Now, Darren Chappell, he had said he was going to be opposed to this. He was a no vote. Bishop Davidson, a no vote. Dean, who is a Democrat, he is also a no vote. Betsy Fogel, a yes vote. So here is a little split in the Democrats where she is apparently on the side of corporate welfare. So those of you who feel like, the Republicans are the ones that are always giving tax breaks to the billionaires, you may want to give Fogel a call. Another Democrat, Hine, he's newly elected. He also voted yes on this. Interesting, isn't it? Owen voted yes. Riley, who was just announced he's going to be running for speaker, he also voted yes. Melanie Stennett voted no. Titus, no. Whaley, no. So for the most part, local Republicans in the assembly have been standing in opposition to this. You do have a couple exceptions, again, Riley being one of them, but Chappell, Davidson, Stennett, Titus, Whaley, and I know there are some others in the area, but I just thought I'd hit some of them that were right in the immediate area. We will get that listing up so you can see where it is that your state rep stands on that. We've got Christy Fulnecki coming up in the upcoming Hour News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 104.1. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. I am Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com. Now, I personally don't need one right now, but when I did, I went to iwantagreathomeloan.com. I remember sort of a funny thing because, of course, you know, I'm friends with the Carrickers and that whole team, and so once I needed, I thought, okay, I'm going to buy a home. And so I texted one of them. I was like, hey, listen, we're looking to buy a home. I want to see what options are available in terms of home loans. What do I need to do? And they're like, well, go to iwantagreathomeloan.com. And it was because that is set up for, everybody gets that same level of VIP service. And it really is a convenient, streamlined way to get things done very easily, particularly oftentimes, it's either one extreme or the other. Absolutely everything's online, and you're never dealing with the same person. You don't even know who you're dealing with. You're completely lost, or it's an in-person experience, and everything has to be in person. And so you go to your local financial institution, you have to set up a meeting, or you sit there in the lobby and you wait for 30 minutes. But the best of both worlds has been created by the Carrickers and the team. You start out by going to iwantagreathomeloan.com. You enter some basic information. That allows them to go ahead and get started for you immediately, and then get with you what additional information is needed. It really is crafted to be the best, easiest, most streamlined experience possible for refinancing and home loan needs, and it's all at iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. Chrissy Fulnecki's here.
Yes, good morning.
How was Simple Minds?
Oh, it was really good.
It was simple.
Great.
So you went and this was in Arkansas.
Right, at the amphitheater.
Yeah, at the amphitheater,
right.
which I like that
how was
venue.
it?
It was actually really good.
I'm going there September. I've never been there before.
Oh, really?
I
yeah,
like
we've been
it.
there a couple
I
times.
like the venue.
Yeah.
I've only been there once when we all went to
it's
see
really
Smashing
nice and
Pumpkins.
clean. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
But so it was Simple Minds, Soft Sell, and who else?
Modern English.
Modern English.
Yeah,
that's
it was
right.
like so 80s. It
Oh, well,
was
well,
awesome.
yeah, of
it was
course.
really good.
Of course it was.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, it wasn't like totally packed like some of the concerts are, but it was also raining, but still it was fun. We were on the lawn. Yeah, it was great.
Well, good.
Yeah,
well, I know it was important enough that you didn't come in last Thursday, so.
Oh, that was the reason I didn't come in.
I know.
I know.
Well,
and
because you texted me, and you're like, "Hey, by the way, I'm not going to be there. We're going to this." And you're like, "Are you going?" I'm like, "No, because I'm doing the show." Dum. What are you talking
Do
about?
the show live there.
Yeah, I don't think
Hey,
I don't think
actually,
I want to
that's a
go
good
go to a concert late and then get up and do the show. No, I would take off the next day.
Well, I know I forget because we have our group text, and then I couldn't remember if you guys were going. You're going to Lumineers, though.
Yes. And what's funny about that is I'm bad about checking the group text, and so I did not realize that. I think it was Eric had posted, "Hey, we're going to Lumineers. You may want to go." I didn't see that, and so I booked it separately. And I had told him somewhere. I was like, "Hell, we're going to see the Lumineers," because somebody was talking about seeing, and he's like, "You are," and then he said, "Well, I texted to see if you guys wanted to go," and I felt kind of like a jerk. It's like, "Oh, I missed that text. I did not see it."
Good job, Nick.
So booked it separate.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm sure
but we'll be
everyone's
there.
really interested in our conversation about.
Let's talk about it some more, shall we?
So, I've been all over the place. I've been back to the Naval Academy, and then I have a little funny story to tell. Do I have a minute or?
Tell your funny story. Then we'll do news, and then I've got some audio I want to share.
Well, so my daughter Abby, that's at the Naval Academy, because my other daughter went out for a STEM camp, so she got in for upcoming. If you're in 9th, 10th, and 11th, you can go in for like a STEM camp. So she got accepted to win. And so my daughter, though, at the graduation for the Naval Academy, her job was she was chosen to escort the media during the graduation. J.D. Vance spoke, so she was right on the field. They do it at the football stadium. And so she was pretty close to him. And so they tell the media, don't ask the kids any questions about politics. Well, what's the first thing?
Of course.
I know.
They're such trash.
And so, I mean, those kids are so bright. I mean, and I'm not saying that because it was my daughter, but all those kids know how to handle themselves. And so it was like one of the ladies, which I don't even know is the thing. I think she was from Library of Congress or something. I don't know. But so she was talking to my daughter and said, well, what do you think I loved how she put it, about the international students at Harvard that have
Of
been
course.
kicked out.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, for one thing, I mean, it's not international students from Harvard. And it's so anyway. So my daughter said, well, we're not supposed to talk about that. We're only supposed to, talk about the events of the day.
Right.
And we're not. I thought,
Because they're
kidding me?
desperate to
Like,
get them to say anything bad about Trump. That's what they want to do.
I know.
They
I mean, I
want
was
to
like-
get troops under their commander-in-chief. They want to get anyone that they can be in order to, show that, look, even people in the military, they don't like Trump and what he's doing. And they're horrible people.
Well,
They're
and
bad
especially like
people.
in a situation like that where it's so patriotic, and
Oh,
I mean, you
sure.
literally had the Blue Angels
Yeah,
like
but they hate
flying
that
over
stuff.
your
The
head.
left hates that
and
stuff.
and I was like, and then JD Vance, his connections since he was in the Marines, and I thought this is such a beautiful day, and then you guys are still
going around.
obsessed.
I know. They can't. They're just bitter, hateful, bad people.
And luckily we are not.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
What a miserable life those people must have. Go, Chrissy Volnecki with us. We got the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a chance of scattered showers throughout the day with a high near 78. Tonight cloudy with a chance of rain with a low around 67. For your Friday we'll see a 70% chance of showers and thunderstorms and a high near 77. And looking ahead to Saturday, partly sunny with a high near 85.
Chrissy Volnecki with us. I want to play some audio,
Yes.
of course. Now, this is regarding the riots.
Yes.
And Jen Psaki, this is last night on her show on MSNBC called The Briefing, and she had, I don't know, some other left.
Does anyone even watch that? I've never even heard of that. It's almost like they just
I
have
know.
shows to talk to each other.
That's pretty much it.
I know.
But so here's why I want to play this, and I'm going to explain what's happening here. And this is how, frankly, stupid some of these people are.
That's a good way to summarize it.
She is literally making the point that the Trump approach is the approach that stops the riots, but she doesn't realize she's making that point. Okay?
Okay.
So here she is, and she's got a guest on, and they're talking about this back and forth.
The latest polls make it clear, and the public outcry makes it clear too. Overreaching on immigration is not only a moral loser, it's a political loser for
That's
Trump
not
so
true,
far.
Oh my
And protests over that overreach are spreading nationwide. No Kings rallies are planned in all 50 states this Saturday and are expected to be massive. But these protests are spreading across the country tonight. This is the scene in San Antonio, Texas right now. Hundreds of people holding signs, playing music, cheering and chanting, peacefully protesting ICE raids in their community. In response to organizers planning that San Antonio rally, Texas Governor Greg Abbott announced that he would deploy the National Guard to target anti-ICE protests across the Lone Star State. And joining us now is Texas Congressman Greg Casar. He's also the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. So we're showing photos. This is essentially part of your district.
No, I'm texting with people there.
Who were there right now. Well, first of all, I just described it as peaceful. It looked very peaceful. What are they telling you, people you're texting with on the ground?
This is in San Antonio,
Yeah,
where it is peaceful.
Independent journalists right there are describing these peaceful protests where we just had protests in San Antonio just a couple days ago. Same thing. Hundreds of people, zero incident, but people like Donald Trump and Governor Abbott are actually trying to escalate the situation, right? They're trying to light the fire, pour gasoline on it. Everybody else gets burned, and they try to blame Democrats for it. We need to make it very clear that it's people like Greg Abbott and Donald Trump that should own any chaos by their escalating of tensions, not Democrats or not people trying to defend the civil rights of people in their community.
The difference here, not to scare people from Texas who are watching, but they're probably firm stock. Governor Newsom is trying to protect the people in his state. I mean, he just doesn't want it to be militarized. He doesn't want the National Guard to be intervening in these protests. That's sort of the opposite of the governor of Texas.
All right, so now they go on. So here's what they're saying. They are criticizing the Texas approach because Trump and Abbott have the National Guard at hand and making sure that the protesters know, hey, don't get out of control. Everything will be fine. And they're saying, look, and everyone's peaceful. Yes, because the National Guard is there, welcomed by the governor. Meanwhile, and she keeps pointing and she's like, I don't want to scare the people of Texas, their approach, where Gavin Newsom, he's actually taking the approach to try to protect people. And look what's happening there.
That's right.
What do you not understand? You are proving the point that when you have a governor that says, yes, we welcome the National Guard to make sure that order is kept here and that peaceful protesters are among the people protected from the rioters, that you get peace. They are pointing to the proof that the Trump approach and that when you have a governor welcoming the National Guard, you have peace. The Gavin Newsom way of saying, no, ICE is a bunch of terrorists and the National Guard are a bunch of terrorists and they're the ones who caused the problem. Look what you have there. It's like, how can they be so stupid to not realize
Well,
how
can they be so stupid that they didn't learn anything from the last election? I mean, immigration is not... that was the main issue, lady.
Well,
what are you talking about?
So, and then, of course, this is the factual inaccuracy. She's claimed that the overreach has proven to be a political loser,
and what does
according
that mean,
to the polls.
overreach?
But
like,
aside from that,
either...
she's wrong. The polls are consistently showing that people approve. A majority of the people approve of even the National Guard being dispatched. And in fact, Harry Eaton on CNN, maybe she should turn on CNN, was looking at polling, and back in 2020, Democrats held a 32-point lead on the issue amongst immigrant voters. These are immigrants. Now the Republicans have an 8-point lead. This is a 40-point swing since Trump has been...
Republicans have the 8-point,
But that is amongst immigrants, a 40-point swing. And so here you have this lying idiot on MSNBC claiming, first off, that, well, this is a political loser. The polls are... She couldn't be further from the truth on that. But again, the fact that they're visually showing San Antonio and how peaceful those protesters are, and then noting that, well, Trump and Abbott there are hand in hand using the National Guard as opposed to Newsom, and he's trying to protect people. Well, which one is working better?
That's right.
You know what
Well,
it
they don't
reminds me of?
care
Do you remember when Jim Acosta, during Trump's first term, he was mocked mercilessly, and he earned it because there was an area where Trump had the wall built, okay?
Right.
So he went down there in order to prove the point that it wasn't needed, because he goes, there are absolutely no illegals anywhere around here. And people are like, yeah, you idiot,
He's
because
such
the
an
wall
idiot.
is there.
Yeah, I know.
You are making Trump's point. These people are so
I don't remember
stupid.
that was a wall behind him when he was
yeah,
talking.
it was
that would
the
be
big,
funny.
like, it was, I don't know, 40 foot tall or whatever, and the big iron beams or whatever. But I remember him standing there and talking about, like mocking Trump, that there's no need for this wall because there aren't any illegals here. And just universally, everyone's like, because the wall is there, you idiot. How can you be this
let him
stupid?
That's what I said.
These people are so stupid.
They're going to lose every election, hopefully. I mean, you never know. There's crazy things that happen.
I don't know. Increasingly, they overturn elections. They cancel elections.
Right. I mean, they cheat. But the legal immigrants, they are going to, especially, the people from Mexico and the surrounding countries. I mean, they are so tired of this. Did you see all of the business owners in Los Angeles when they're interviewing them?
Yeah.
And all of them had accents from other countries. I mean, and there wasn't one that was, that.
Well, and so here's the other crazy thing. A lot of these people, not all, but a lot of them left their country because of this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because of these gangs, because of these people who would take over entire city streets. And so the irony here is that oftentimes it's the Democrats that point out the fact that they were just coming for a better life. Where they lived, it was always dangerous. They couldn't get away from gangs. Yeah. And now they're watching the place they moved to turn into the place they fled, and then the elected officials defending them.
I can't wait for the next election. They're going to say, well, what happened to the Hispanic vote? I have no idea what happened to them. Why are they voting Republican?
So here is in New York, and there were not the level of violence that we have seen in Los Angeles, but they still were blocking traffic, left-wingers. And here is audio from somebody filming on a phone. Now, two white liberals that are being confronted by a black woman who had her vehicle blocked, okay? So she gets out of the car to have a conversation with them.
I know that these people are having their children taken, but what about my kids? That's what happens to my kids. But you can if you could just move out from here. How is this a peaceful protest if there's nothing to lose? No, it's not.
How do you let white people feel about stopping a black woman from going to work?
Oh no, not work. I care so much.
So you don't care about stopping black people from going to work?
Look at this line that you guys are causing. I'm not causing no problem. I'm not trying to. We're just trying to leave.
Now, as you can imagine, this is going somewhat right. I know there's a lot of noise there, but here, she's a black. She's just trying to go to work, and she's trying to talk to them reasonably, like, why are you? Just let me get through. And you have these two, and it's always white. White liberals are the worst.
I know. I was thinking that when you said that.
It's not white people, and it's not even
are they
liberals.
Female too?
One of them is,
Yeah.
and the other one, who knows, could be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's the combination. It is like a poison where you take a white person and who also happens to be liberal. They are the absolute worst people. And so here, and somebody's like, why? This is a black woman, knowing that these are lefties, and like, why are you blocking? And he mocks her. He's like, oh, you're trying to go to work.
Unlike you people that are standing in the middle of the street. I'm telling you, that would not happen in New York if Giuliani was mayor.
Well, there are these quiet observations that the reason it hasn't gotten to the point that it did in L.A. is because they know that Mayor Adams, even though he's a Democrat and leftist, he would not let it get that far.
Yeah, well, that's
because
true.
He's got a decent relationship with Trump.
Yeah.
And so the left-wing rioters, they know that, like in L.A., it's a much... They have a tremendous amount of support from the Democrats there, whereas Mayor Adams is not going to, be as accommodating. We've got Christy Fulnecki with us, and we've got a couple bits of audios as well to continue on with here. The Pyramid Roofing Company text Talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. Christy Fulnecki with us in other rioter news. And we played audio earlier, and that was actually in New York, where two white liberals were blocking a black woman for trying to get to work and mocking her for trying to get to work. And you mentioned the particularly immigrants, small business owners in L.A. that are having their businesses destroyed.
Yeah, it's so sad.
This is such a clear, once again, demonstration of the elites versus the rest of us. And it's why there's been this massive wild swing of immigrants towards Trump's policies on this. But the elites, for example, astronaut Katy Perry rages against illegal immigrants being, quote, hunted like criminals in their own ancestral home.
What?
But it's these rich celebrities, and in her
space,
case
Katie.
again, an astronaut that live it. They can get on their private jets,
I
fly
know,
anywhere,
that's
go
right,
anywhere.
yeah.
She isn't someone whose entire livelihood is tied into a small business that was destroyed. I mean, they're just so rich and elite. Ilhan Omar's daughter, applauding anti-ICE riots, urges, quote, death to colonial empire. U.S. and Israel, one oppressor. And so being Ilhan Omar's daughter, I guess she's probably also her niece, because Ilhan Omar.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
So I guess daughter/niece. But, these people that live these privileged lives that do not have to suffer the consequences of these policies. And it's, on one hand, the instinct I know oftentimes I have it is, hey, this is what those people want. They continue to vote for these people. But then there are those who don't vote that way. They're in the minority, and oftentimes they are minorities, increasingly more so, and they are victims of it. But it just gets to the point, like, you just have to get out of there. And unfortunately, because of the economic policies of the left, there is such an income gap that gets created. Poor people can't afford to leave. The really, really uber wealthy elitist liberals out there live in gated communities, so they aren't touched by this, other than they're worried about, and you hear it all the time, who's going to cut our grass, who's going to give us manicures, that's their area of concern, that the help won't be there for them. And so, they aren't affected by it in any meaningful way. And it's the poor people and middle income that are trapped there, and they can't get out because of the economic policies of the left.
And Trump could let
third world country.
I mean, Trump could let that city burn to the ground and not do anything because it would help him politically because everybody would see. I mean, we do see that it's burning.
Well, and Sarah made the point, and she's right. Then they would do like they did on January 6th. He didn't call in the National Guard.
Oh, I can't believe Nancy Pelosi. I'm like, really? You're rich. I mean, to say that.
I know.
To stand there.
I know.
I mean, that really, since I've been through that whole thing, I can't believe she said that.
She's a nasty old wet dog.
Yeah, I know.
She reminds me of one of those. You see those?
John Voight called Newsom some kind of dog.
A lion dog, I think.
Yeah,
I saw
lion dog, yeah.
Nancy Pelosi reminds me, you see the videos, and it's usually an ugly dog contest, and it just kind of has the buggy eyes and the tongue hanging out, and it shakes. It just it looks like it's really cold. That's what Nancy Pelosi.
It's been dying for 10 years.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
The shaking is when she hasn't had her box wine for more
speaking
than an hour.
of a dog or something dying on your head, Maxine Waters, she is unbelievable, that woman.
She's still claiming that there's been absolutely no violence.
Did you see her out in the street?
Oh, yeah.
She was out in the street. I mean,
do you remember there was video
yelling at the National Guard?
There was video of her, and I think she was being interviewed on some news program, and her wig was kind of sideways a little bit. Do you remember that? It was really.
Jeez, it's so distracting when you look at her, and then. I mean, I just couldn't believe she was out on the street yelling.
I liked when she tried to get into that. I don't even know.
Department of Education, I think, wasn't it?
Well, no, there was a recent, just this past week.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know what facility, and it was some law enforcement facility, and they just shut the door in her face. It was so funny to watch because she's like, I'm Maxine Waters, and I'm here under my congressional authority to do it. And he's like, you're going to have to talk to so-and-so or something. And she kind of tries to grab the door. Of course, she's frail. And he just like shuts it on her. It's really kind of, I don't know.
I know. I mean,
it's gratifying to watch.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what her purpose is. If she thinks she's, becoming insignificant, and then she was standing in the street. Did you see that? She said, if you're going to shoot me, you better shoot straight.
Oh, yeah.
And she was wanting them to shoot her.
Asking them if they're going to kill babies or kill kids. They're going full circle back to when they used to spit on Vietnam veterans, calling them baby killers.
Right. Oh,
and they're like bringing back the baby killer thing once again. I mean, it really is a wise step forward to once again connecting with the average American.
I know that's right.
The millions of dollars they've been spending to research how it is to seem more normal and communicate effectively with normal Americans, it clearly is paying off. You can see the results of it all over this.
And then you think, okay, you have one crazy person that does this, but then you have a group of them. So that press conference, I don't know if it was yesterday, with Mayor Bass and Maxine Waters, and I don't remember who else was there, but there were like 6 or 7 of them. And they were saying, it's very peaceful in Los Angeles. I thought, are you guys on drugs? Or like, your mayor is standing there and you're saying that it's
like you
peaceful?
thought we effed up that fire response? Just watch, folks. A traffic update. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 104.1, the First Alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a chance of scattered showers throughout the day with a high near 78. Tonight cloudy with a chance of rain with a low around 67. For your Friday we'll see a 70% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a high near 77. And looking ahead to Saturday, partly sunny with a high near 85. And the Pyramid Roofing Company, when severe weather strikes, it is crucial to have a trusted, experienced team on your side. And that's exactly what you'll find with Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, the Pyramid team, they specialize in navigating kind of those often complicated insurance claims processes, making sure that every single detail is accounted for so you're not left footing the bill for something that should have been covered. Every project that they do starts with a free, thorough roof inspection. The team, they take tons of photos and videos so you can see what they see, and there's no guesswork and there's no surprises. From minor repairs to just the full roof replacements, they do it all. And the Pyramid team, they handle residential, commercial, and metal roofing services as well. So if it is time to have your roof checked, make sure to reach out to Josh and his team today. You can find all the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Someone had, this is pretty funny, but it actually gave me an idea. Nerf should promote peaceful foam bricks for protesters that don't have the arm strength to throw a real one, which probably is a significant portion of
I know,
those protesters.
that's right.
But how hilarious would it actually be to drop off a pallet of like foam bricks or something?
Yeah.
Just to, because they're not, I mean, this is what's happening. They're having their munitions that are being dropped off.
Yeah, I
And
saw that with that truck.
so to
and
drop
that
off
mask.
or drop off what maybe even real bricks or foam bricks, but have them covered in poison ivy oil or something to just really mess with them. And I'm not talking about government do that as an but just if I lived in LA and I had the means, with somebody, I think that would be a pretty funny idea to do something like it, just to jack with them. They're so dumb.
I'm telling you, you are seeing mental illness on full display, right? I mean, this is like
I think
let
Mark
everyone
Halperin's-
out of the.
I think Mark Halperin,
Crazy
this is
house.
the manifestation of Trump derangement syndrome.
Oh yeah, have you seen some of these people on TikTok? They were showing one guy was like, he was so unhinged.
I just don't understand how people on the left that have it in their minds that Trump supporters are deranged lunatics.
I know, right?
Look at what is going on.
Yeah. The
There's
people that don't want their car blocked because they want to go to work, that's the people that support Trump.
There's a guy, I don't know who he is, but he's some social media guy, and I've seen where he will go to some of these different left-wing events, and he'll find the most visually stereotypical left-winger, like somebody that clearly is gender whatever, and half their head is shit. They've got all this. I mean, it's just it is a poster person for the left, and ask them, their opinion on why it is that they think like conservatives are so weird. And it's just so funny to see. And he's a conservative guy, but the visuals of someone that is so clearly weird trying to explain why conservatives are weird in their opinion, it is such a funny
Who
thing.
is it? Do you know who it is?
I don't know. I'm not sure. He's not someone I've recognized, but I've seen a couple of those reels pop up. Now, so here, this is kind of shifting. It's still the people on the left are weird category, but regarding the economy and the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, was testifying in the House Ways and Means Committee hearing. And it was about tariffs, and Democrats are still out there trying to claim that the economy is horrible, Great Depression, and so forth, which, of course, is the opposite of reality.
Right.
And so Democrat California Rep. Linda Sanchez was questioning him, and this is how the opening went.
And in the interest of time, because our time here is limited, I'm going to ask you to please limit your answers to yes or no questions, and I'm going to jump straight into those questions. Mr. Secretary, do you still believe that the president's tariffs are going to be a one-time price adjustment for American families?
If prices go up, they will be one time.
Okay, well, unfortunately, you appear to be talking out of both sides of your mouth because you yourself have admitted, after conversations with Walmart, that some tariff costs are going to get passed on to consumers. And in fact, we've already seen that prices are rising on many everyday goods.
No, Congresswoman,
please
today,
don't interrupt
today
me.
we had
The
a
time is mine.
1.1
The
increase.
time is mine. Please don't interrupt me.
And
I will ask you
Wal-
questions and I will grant you an opportunity to answer them, but please don't interrupt me during my time.
With pleasure.
Okay, I know I'm a woman, but please
Oh
try
my
to
God.
limit yourself to answering my questions.
They're
sorry,
like,
but we
oh
get
my
talked over
gosh.
all the
Here we
time,
go.
And
I know.
and I don't want that to happen at this hearing.
That's the best part is that I've never heard that before. It was like that reaction, that immediate instinctual reaction. People there, they're like, "Oh my god!"
I know that's what we. That's what we.
Well,
said.
you did it too.
That's what we
well,
just did.
let me
I
play it
know.
again, in case, so you can hear it.
Yeah, because
But that's your instinct.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Here we go.
With pleasure.
Okay, I know I'm a woman, but please try to
Oh.
limit yourself to answering my questions. No, I'm sorry, but we get talked over all the time.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
here we go.
Yes,
What a
women
baby.
women never talk over people.
Oh my gosh.
That's
I
only a
would-
guy thing.
I can't imagine if I did that in court. I mean,
I
can you
know I'm a
imagine?
woman. Like,
I
oh.
know that you're interrupting me because
I would
I'm
have
a-
said, "Are
I
you?"
mean- Yeah, that's
Could have
right.
fooled me.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's what's. I mean, that's what's called when you testify yourself. You know. I
Did
mean,
you
and she won't even let him talk. That is hilarious.
I don't know if I saved the audio. Maybe I'll look during the break. But did you see? I think it was this.
And she didn't write her questions herself. Those were not her questions.
Yeah, that's probably true. There was audio, and I want to say it was also a hearing, and it perhaps was also with the Treasury Secretary, and the Democrat was trying to talk about tariffs on bananas. And how bananas have gone up 10 cents or whatever a pound. And he's like, well, if they're not, if the answer to that is move your business to America and then you don't have to. And she says you can't build bananas in America. Which there are banana farms in America. I mean, there are a lot of bananas that are sold, and some are actually even exported. But yeah, aside from the fact, to your point, to some degree, they're kind of given these questions a lot of times.
No, that's what I'm saying.
So
Like,
she has no clue. She thinks evidently that you can't grow bananas in the United States of America, which you can, and it is done. It's done in quite a few states in America. But that she used the verbiage, you can't build bananas in America.
I mean, they're a bunch of idiots.
They are a bunch
For
of
one
idiots.
thing, to not recognize how smart the Treasury Secretary is.
He is really
He's
smart.
very, very, very smart. I mean, I'll listen to him for a long time. I'm like, I have to go back and listen to it a couple of times just to understand what he's saying. And, I worked on Capitol Hill, so I used to be one of those people that would write questions. And those are like 22 to 25-year-olds that are writing your questions.
Yeah.
So,
And increasingly, that age group, especially if they're on the left, they're dumb.
I know, that's what I'm saying. So you're having dumb people write the dumb congressmen and congresswomen, Democrats, their questions. I mean, you might as well not even talk. I mean, that's terrible. At least if you're going to come up to the table, go find an economist or something to write your questions. Don't have somebody that dropped out of college.
You can't build bananas in America. Traffic update, more with Christy Fulnecki. I'm Nick Reed. All right, Sarah got that audio exchange for us. Was it the Treasury
It was
Secretary?
the Commerce Secretary, Lutnick.
Oh, I like him too.
Yeah, he's good.
I do like him.
Yeah, he's very outgoing too.
And some Democrat congresswoman who she is probably irrelevant.
Again, is she a white woman?
Yeah.
The tariff on bananas would be representative of the countries that produce them.
And what's that tariff?
Generally 10%.
Correct, 10%. Walmart has already increased the cost of bananas by 8%.
But as countries do deals with us, that will go to zero. As countries do deals with us, that will go to zero.
But the cost is on the American consumer now and on the businesses with the confusion now. Mr. Secretary, I believe you know better. I believe you recognize that a trade deficit is not something to fear. I believe you know that predictability, stability is essential for businesses. I wish you would show that truth to this administration. And I yield back.
Time of the gentlelady is expired.
Do you mind, Mr. Chairman, if I make one quick comment to the end? Would that be okay?
I'm sorry?
Would you mind if I make one quick comment to the representative?
Sure. Please.
There's no uncertainty if you build in America and you produce your product in America, there will be no tariff.
We can't
so
produce
the concept
bananas in
of
America.
building in America and paying no tariff is very, very clear.
We cannot
Fighting for
build
imports
bananas
is
in
not the
America.
Jeez. Oh, my gosh. Please stop talking.
I wonder why she thought that you can't grow bananas in America. I mean, obviously some parts of the country you can't, but
Well, maybe you
And,
can, but you can't build them.
yeah, you can't. She's technically
Well,
correct. You cannot build a banana,
I could
but you
tell
can't build them anywhere.
When she was going to go off the cliff because she started talking about what was good for businesses, I'm like, oh, it's going downhill from here. She has no idea what she's talking about. Oh, this is terrible.
Can't build bananas in America.
That's right.
It's just flat
no
out.
wonder our economy's been so screwed up.
Someone needs to write a book just straight up called "These People Are Stupid," and it just be
you know how
chapter
funny,
after chapter of this stuff.
I mean, it's got to be hilarious to go to these meetings with Trump and these guys. Because he has, like, the smartest people surrounding him. And, stuff like this, they're probably, laughing so hard.
I saw a clip of a documentary I've seen before, and it was Clarence Thomas. It was actually about, it was a biography or autobiography of his life. And then it was made into a documentary in which it's him talking into the camera. And it was really, really good. But one of the clips that I saw roll up, again, I saw it in the documentary, and it was Joe Biden interrogating him when he was the nominee for the Supreme Court. And Biden is just kind of rambling on, and he keeps saying, "You and I know what we're talking about." And so the interviewer was like, "What?" And Clarence Thomas, who just he's very humble and has a humble way about it. He's like, "I had no idea what he was talking about." And so, but he says one of the things that you learn when you are forced to testify or be questioned in that setting is that you have to portray yourself as really being attentive to people that you know have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. And it's true.
That's right, yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean all of them don't, but you can imagine, and you can almost hear the exhaustion in his voice. He's like, but once the tariffs go away, the price, well, this is not very difficult to understand.
As I would explain to my second graders.
I know. And so they have to, these really smart people that are very, very, very busy. And this is the opposite of the last administration, of course. But these are people that are actually doing very meaningful things, that are very busy. And they have to take time out of their day to go and do this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, I would, how exhausting.
Well, and you have to do it in
counterproductive.
not a condescending way, which would be very tricky.
I think, though, we have seen a lot, particularly during the nomination process, a number of these nominees not worry about that quite as much.
Yeah.
And I think it's partially because people, the average person has realized that so many of these elected officials that ask these questions are not serious. That they are not to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
And you
Well,
know,
that's true.
like the
That's-
Hegseths and the Tulsi
Well, and
Gabbards.
like Cash
and
Patel,
Cash
during
Patels,
his,
yeah.
and
And so I think that a lot of these people, because they aren't part of the Washington D.C., they know that people have kind of figured this out, and so they don't have to pretend any longer. By the way, I believe today the Senate is going to be voting on Billy Long's nomination, the full Senate.
Oh,
for head of the
today?
RSU.
Oh, good.
That is my
Okay.
understanding.
That's great.
Get a traffic update, more coming up. I'm Nick Reed. With the left-wing activists increasingly becoming more violent and calls to protest the Army's 250th, it's supposed to coincide with the Army's 250th parade display, and so they're protesting that as well. There is going to be, and we talked, the news leader is doing what they can to promote it. They had a quote article, but it also had tips on when you go and a listing of all the different locations so you could attend. This is as
Are
a
you
news
serious?
no, absolutely
I mean,
100% serious.
yeah, that's not
so,
surprising.
So Mike Kehoe, governor, kind of getting ahead of things, right? And so he had what was this, a press release? What this was?
He posted on Facebook. I'm sure it was a press release as well. He said, in response to immigration enforcement protests planned across Missouri, the Missouri Department of Public Safety, Missouri State Highway Patrol, and Missouri National Guard have established a unified command to monitor situations on the ground. We are prepared to assist local law enforcement in protecting our communities. We respect and will defend the right to peacefully protest, but we will not tolerate violence or lawlessness.
Good.
And it was the Boone County Democrats that had a response to that?
They did.
Columbia, Missouri.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know exactly that's where I went to school.
So they replied back to this and they said, our protests will be peaceful. We look forward to our law enforcement officers providing protection from others who believe they can quell our voices.
Yeah, because
Those
clearly the problem has been all those red hat MAGA wearing Trump supporters that are going around attacking peaceful protesters. That's been happening everywhere.
Yeah, those are all Mizzou students, probably.
Just that, I tell you, the two greatest dangers to our country, definitely domestically, and perhaps even overall, are media and universities. In this country.
Right.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
Because the media is full blown, unabashedly, unapologetically, straight up propaganda for the left. So they are the machine of disinformation. And then you have these universities that are fully indoctrinating young people to believe the left is good, the right is evil. Do not listen to diversity of ideas because those ideas are evil. And so there's no place in this world for evil. And they turn them into these little cult soldiers that can never articulate their perspective. That's why they get so crazy and angry and mad whenever somebody tries to engage them in conversation, because they sort of short circuit. They don't know how to think. And
they're living in their parents' basement.
And so the combination of the devastation the university is doing culturally to this country and the media, I think those are the two biggest dangers.
Yeah, I agree.
And the hilarious thing about the universities that really have to give them some level of respect is that they manage to get parents. Just culturally, it's sort of expect you have to spend all of this money in order for that to happen to your kids. Now, some parents, their kids are in the right mind. You know, I mean, we have friends
No,
that
I
are
mean,
that way.
there's- yeah.
You have, you know, because they've been raised right, so they already know how to think for themselves. They have that shield built up. But if you're not proactive and you spend tens of thousands of dollars to send the kids, and I hear it all the time. Parents always say, man, my kid was totally normal until they went to college, and after 2 years, they won't even talk to us anymore.
Yeah.
Because like a cult, they separate you from your family. And that's what ends up happening.
But luckily, social media has broken through to help that we saw in the last election.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I know that a lot of the students at the academies, they're usually applying to Ivy League schools, and so they're competing against that. But many of them are not going to those schools, the good students, because of that. And before it was like, okay, I'll go to Ivy League school, and then I'm just not going to say that I'm conservative. And now they're just choosing not to go, which is good. I mean, I think that we're making progress.
There was a story. Well, I think it was CNN, Harry Eaton doing a breakdown in how there was a decrease in foreign students showing an interest in coming to the U.S. And it was funny because, of course, their perspective was because Trump has made it of concern to be in this country if you're illegal. Or maybe it's because their parents observed over the past year riots on university campuses, literally attacking physically police and Jews on college campuses, taking over entire buildings. I mean, if I'm a parent and I live in another, and I'm thinking about sending my kid to another country's university and I see that going on, I'd be like, no, I don't think so.
And I see what happens in the library. I mean, at Columbia and all these places where they took over and started rioting the library, and those kids are starting to, they're trying to study.
Who would want to send their kids to, particularly if you're from another country and you're an ocean away? I mean, it's already, for a lot of parents, it's a big step. Your kids go away, but to send them across the country in that sort of environment. Christy Filnacki, as always, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much.
Have a wonderful rest of the day. We've got news in 60 seconds. Springfield's Talk 1041. I am Nick Reed. Welcome to the show, everyone. We've got Author of the Week coming up, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. It's a very interesting book. A lot of times you'll read a book like, oh, I never thought of that. That's a great point. The entire premise of the book itself, I was like, what? How on earth did this author think of this angle? So that is coming up in just a couple of moments. Want to remind you that no planning at all. Sometimes going loosey-goosey is great. We've got a lot of, you got friends and everything. If you ever gone on vacation with friends and maybe you're the type that you just like, hey, the whole point of vacation is you just don't even, you wake up every day and you just do what you want to do in the moment. And then there are the other people that have to have an itinerary. Everything needs to be planned out to maximize it. And that sort of planning is, something that may drive you nuts. But when it comes to, dying, if you have family left behind, the planning part is definitely what you want to do. You don't do planning and then government's going to decide where your stuff goes. None of this next of kin stuff. That becomes totally irrelevant. Same thing with medical power of attorney. Some of you worry about, I don't want to harvest my organs, or I want to make sure that they do everything they can to keep me alive. Well, who's they? If you do not have all of that legally, officially taken care of in official legal documents, then guess what? Government makes that decision for you. Ozarks Elder Law, they can put you in charge of your own life, your own death, your own medical decisions, or allow you to make sure that the person you want to make those decisions is able to do it. Free consultation, 10 area locations. You can get all of their information by going to ozarkselderlaw.com. They're great people. You can also find them under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. Latest news.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies. We'll also have a chance for scattered showers throughout the day with a high near 78. Tonight cloudy with a chance of rain with a low around 67. For your Friday, we'll see a 70% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a high near 77. And looking ahead to Saturday, partly sunny skies with a high near 85.
I'm Nick Reed. It's Thursday, which means it is time for Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Our author, Michael Pakalik, PhD, Harvard philosophy, and a professor of political economy in the Bush School of Business at the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. The book is Be Good Bankers, The Economic Interpretation of Matthew's Gospel. And I want to start off reading here the description of the premise, I suppose, and it says, suppose that the author of the Gospel of Matthew was an ambitious tax collector who was intricately familiar with the best practices of Roman banking, accounting, and contract law. As a result, wouldn't we expect to see a unique account of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection that was suffused with business principle and economic rationality? Now, that being said, my first question for you is, what on earth, how in the world did you come up with this angle? It just, I was racking my brain trying to figure that out.
That's a really, when you put it that way, that's a really great question. I came at it from two different angles. One is when I was a graduate student, I encountered the saying, be good bankers. And I read it in St. Francis de Sales, and he said that the ancients said that Jesus used to teach this. And so I investigated, and I learned that 10 different church fathers, Ambrose, Clement of Rome, Clement of Alexandria, Jerome, they all passed on this teaching that Jesus taught. It's not in the New Testament, be good bankers. So I started reflecting, it's so different from what we think of Jesus. So is there kind of a kind of neglected dimension of his teaching that comes from this? So this is actually called an agraphon. It's a teaching of Jesus that wasn't written down in the New Testament. You kind of get a grasp of what this is if you think of it's more blessed to give than to receive. That's actually not in any of the four Gospels. It's in the book of Acts. St. Paul cites it as something that Jesus taught. And if he didn't cite it in that speech and Luke hadn't written it down, it is more blessed to give than to receive would have been an agraphon. It would have been something that was just passed on the tradition. So there are statements like that, and be good bankers is one of them. So just kind of being fascinated by that and thinking about what that could mean for really a couple of decades. And then the other approach is I've written a couple of other books on the Gospels, one on Mark, and I kind of discovered St. Peter is the kind of the person behind the Gospel of Mark. And I looked at the Gospel of John on the premise that he lived together with Mary, the mother of God, for 30 years. Is there any sign that made a difference in how? So I was looking at the Gospel of Matthew and thinking, well, can I carry this on? Can I say, well, who would be a person behind this gospel, influencing the gospel? And I thought, well, maybe, the idea that Jesus called Matthew away from being a tax collector is not entirely correct. Maybe he called him because he was a tax collector, just like he called fishermen so they could become fishers of men. Maybe he wanted somebody who had experience in writing things down. The TV series The Chosen takes this approach. I think it's basically correct. My picture of Matthew is a little bit different, but I think that's right. He picked him because he was a tax collector.
Well, I find that your curiosity absolutely fascinating. It's something I never thought of, and I don't know that I ever would have thought of it. So I really like it because it's something new and different in terms of an approach. And I think a lot of people that are business owners, and I know we have a lot of business owners, local business owners, people in finance, and that are Christians, and there is this sort of, like you said, a few little cliches that I think maybe they take as cues in terms of learning about Christ and how to be a good Christian. There's tithing, but outside of that, I don't know that people have ever really thought about there being much direction. Given your dive into this, what did you learn?
Well, I want to say something about the most interesting thing about Matthew, which I learned from this in a second. But I want to first turn to what you said. And a lot of bankers and people in finance and accountants have come up to me after they've learned about my book or heard a book talk, and they said, "Wow, thank you so much for writing this," because typically we're under a kind of cloud of suspicion that we're just greedy people, and anyone who's involved in in finance or banking has to be greedy because they're trying to maximize their profit. And so there's a kind of a basic principle of this book, which is that God is providentially in charge of things, and he would not have designed our lives such that we need to spend 8 or 10 hours a day doing business unless he thought that was good for us and he wanted to teach us something through business. So I completely put aside this view that it's greedy to be trying to make a living and support a family and acquire substance. I reject that completely. I don't think that's a Christian idea, actually. So the book serves as a kind of invitation for people who are engaged in these kinds of occupations to go back and forth freely between those occupations and their Christian and their discipleship to Jesus, and kind of have each illumine the other. If you want to say what's the basic takeaway from the book, that's certainly one of the basic takeaways. But I wanted to ask the other question, like one of the most fascinating things I think I learned about the book is the structure of the book of Matthew. Now, I don't know if you go into Gospels on your show or your book talk or whatever, but kind of the standard way that people look at the Gospel of Matthew is that it's a kind of layer cake, an interleaving of miracles and works of Jesus with discourses of Jesus. And people standardly say it's 5 discourses. You could kind of think of it as structured like a layer cake. I think it's very different from that. I discovered in doing the research for this book that every household in the Roman Empire of substance had to keep a record of its accounts. And on one half of a page, they would have the revenue and receipts for the household, and on the other half of the page, the expenses. And this was used for tax purposes, so an ambitious tax collector absolutely would know about this, and was also used to solve disputes in courts of law and so on. So if you think of the kingdom of God as like a household of God, the church is like the household of God, then it ought to have a book of accounts. And the Gospel of Matthew, there's a place where Peter says you are the Christ, and that's in chapter 16. That you are the Christ is exactly the halfway point in the gospel, and if you measure verses or Greek words. And Matthew says that after that point, Jesus began to teach them he had to go up to Jerusalem to get handed over and to suffer and to be put to death. So the second half, literally the second half of the Gospel of Matthew is where one turns to the Passion. The first half of the Gospel of Matthew, of course, begins with the nativity account, with the incarnation. So if I were to say to you, Nick, let's take these two things that are put forward by the Christian faith, the incarnation on the one hand and the Passion on the other, which of those strikes you as being like a payment on the expense side of a ledger, and which of those strikes you as being like a revenue or receipt on that side of the ledger? Right, wouldn't you? Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, wouldn't the redemption, the Passion, which actually means redemption, actually means a purchase,
right?
Wouldn't that go on the expense side? Right.
It seems to be.
And the incarnation is like a deposit. Well, so if you accept that basic analogy, and I explain why we should accept that analogy in the book, then the book of Matthew is actually structured like a book of accounts.
Yeah. Interesting.
And it's very interesting. You can go on from there looking at the structure in more detail. But it kind of completely turns on its head the standard kind of layer cake view about the structure of the book. That and other details pretty strong. I think by the end, the evidence accumulates, and it's pretty overwhelming that this idea is actually true, which I propose.
We are talking with our author of the week, Michael Pekalik. The book is Be Good Bankers, The Economic Interpretation of Matthew's Gospel. What I don't want as people are listening now is to sort of pigeonhole where people think, oh, that book's not for me. And I think just in the brief conversation we've had thus far, this goes beyond people that are in finance. But when it does come to the finance aspect of things again, and you mention people in finance and banking that come up and say thank you, how much of this also translates to people's personal finances? Because I think a lot of folks, and there's criticism oftentimes you see of people, oftentimes by non-Christians, of Christians that are wealthy, they portray them as being somewhat hypocritical because they are amassing worldly wealth. How much of what is learned in Matthew's gospel gives direction in terms of personal finance?
I just want to say something about this wealthy criticism. My wife and I are certainly, a lot better off than we were when we started in life, and we were pretty darn, poor and kind of scraping by. And I was just the other day we had a woman who helps clean the house. We had people who were working on a bathroom remodeling, and we had a third person come in and fix our piano. And we actually have resources now. We can hire people like that. We never did. Wealth has to be viewed as a small kingdom. Right? So now, we can kind of hire people, and they're all supporting themselves. Mm-hmm. They're supporting families. If we're having a piano fixed, are we doing something that's especially luxurious and kind of we have a nice piano? True, but wealth is, except in extreme cases of people who are just absurd, but wealth is typically used to hire other people. Well, that's a very good thing.
Well, and my belief is that if there are two options, one is to hand someone money for doing nothing when they are capable of earning it versus someone who earns it. It's just, I think for the individual person, it's much more meaningful for them to earn it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was the point I made before, that God has designed us that it's actually good to be providing a greater service to another person for pay. That's a very good thing for us. But then you mentioned personal finance, and there's a section in the book which is I entitled "We're all bankers now." If you think of what a banker is supposed to take care of deposits, manage risk, make good trades, lend money. I think that's an important role of a Christian. A very good way of doing a good deed for somebody is to lend them money at no interest, because we could all just look at from the other side. How many times have you wished that somebody would lend you money at no interest? It was close to you, right?
Well, it's like loaning them a tool.
Yeah, it really is. And as you say, it's not something for nothing. I mean, they have to return it, they have to repay it. That's the understandings, and that's good for them. Typically, handouts are degrading and they corrupt people. So, it's a very good thing to do. Christians should think about it more often, especially older generation as regards to newer generation. People try and buy a house for the first time. Instead of, it's a sacrifice if you take that money out of a retirement account and you give it to a young couple and say, okay, repay this at no interest. Okay, you're foregoing the money you could have made in your investment. That's true. But that's the form of your gift. It is a gift to God. But yes, it's true. Everybody in their own little domain has to operate a bit like a banker. And that means being responsible. And it means that there's no free lunch. And you have to know the value of things. And you have to know that anything you get comes at the cost of what you could have otherwise spent that money on. That's called opportunity cost by economists. And this is very valuable to think of life in this way.
Well, the final question I have, and again, I ask this because this is such a unique approach, and so I think a lot of people listening, they're like, I don't know that I really get this, and so I don't want people to be intimidated away from reading it, thinking, I don't know that this applies to me. So what is it that you hope people take away, and who would you say that this book is for?
Well, this book is... It's for people who are interested in Christianity and potentially put off by what they view as its softness and sentimentality and lack of practical realism, because I think that Christianity is supposed to be practically real. And it's also for people who are very familiar with the book of Matthew and think they don't need to read it again because they've heard it so many times. And I think, as you've been saying, there's something really very fresh here and new. I think I have to say that. It'd be dishonest if I didn't claim that it was new. It is a new thing, and I think it's also true. So something that's both new and true is pretty unusual in the world.
Agreed.
So I think I can say that about this book.
Well, absolutely 100% agree. Again, our author of the week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone, Michael Pekalik. The book is Be Good Bankers, The Economic Interpretation of Matthew's Gospel. For Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is Springfield's Talk 1041, streaming live, KSGF.com. Tomorrow is Friday, and that means we are going to be broadcasting live from Scramblers. The Friday Road Show, as always, is sponsored by our good friends at Shirley's Heating and Air, and the doors do open at 6 o'clock. Also, KSGF.com. Father's Day golf giveaway. You can win for dad or for yourself if you're a dad, or we're not going to check your dad's status. But the winner will get a round of golf and, a round of golf for 4 people. So for you and 3 others, or for dad and 3 of his friends at one of the incredible Big Cedar golf courses. Just go over to ksgf.com if you want to get registered for that. All right, coming up. The DNC did vote to overturn the election of David Hogg. He is out. Increasingly, we see Democrats becoming more and more comfortable when they don't like the outcome of the election. Let's just redo it. Let's throw that out. Let's pretend that never happened. This is the party that protects democracy, just so we're not confused. That plus more coming up. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield Stock 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies and a chance of scattered showers throughout the day with a high near 78. Tonight cloudy with a chance of rain with a low around 67. For your Friday we'll see a 70% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a high near 77. And looking ahead to Saturday, partly sunny skies with a high near 85.
DNC members overturned the election of David Hogg. He is out.
That did not take long.
It did not take long. It was just, February that they voted to have David Hogg in there as vice chair, and then they decided, the powers that be, they didn't like what he was doing, so they're like, hey, let's make that election not count, and let's just have a redo.
I think they should get Pete Buttigieg because they're such a train wreck.
Yeah. Now, there's not a replacement yet, so they told everyone you have to revote. We didn't like the outcomes. I mean, why?
Is that what they really said?
Well, I mean, that's not exactly.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, they didn't say that, but that is obviously they didn't like the outcome. It's the same thing. Now, it was a retrospect decision. They didn't like the outcome. At the time, they thought they did. But what happened was, and this is how and I think this is how they think. They're like, well, I mean, it's because he turned out to do things we didn't like. And so in their minds, that means that you can just undo the election. That's not how that's supposed to work. What happens is you wait until the next election is set. That's why elections are set during the standard intervals, whether it is every 2 years or every 4 years or every 6 months, whatever it is, whatever the institution is. Now, if there is an event that is so egregious that there is no option other than to have the person removed, then you put mechanisms in place. Like, for example, when it comes to the President of the United States, you can have impeachment, and then if articles of impeachment are passed in the House, they go to the Senate. Then the Senate holds a trial, and in that trial, if the president gets convicted, then the president is no longer president of the United States. So there are mechanisms in place. The new approach that the Democrats have been taking is, okay, we'll elect someone, but if at some point we decide, we decided we don't like this after all, so they're not going to wait until the next election. They don't think they should have to. They'll just undo it. And Joe Biden is a perfect example of this. Prior to Joe Biden, of course, and this is there's so much irony all over it, is that they tried to overturn the election of Donald Trump, and then they tried to prevent the American people from having the ability to vote for Donald Trump. The only real meaningful success that Democrats had at overturning any election was their own. And it's their people that run around claiming that they are the defenders of democracy. That's how crazy these people are. So the DNC, in very similar fashion, there's a vote. David Hogg is made vice chair. Then some time goes on, and they're like, we don't like some of the stuff he's saying. So let's just, you know what? We're going to have a do-over. Is this going to be the absolute new norm for Democrats? And I love how Democrats seem to have no problem with this as voters. No protests. No peaceful protests. No demands for accountability. No accusations of destroying democracy. No characterizations of authoritarianism or dictatorship. No, none of that whatsoever. They just sort of happily skip along like, okay, I guess we chose poorly. Tell us who to choose now. I don't know how you all that are Democrats, how you rectify that, how does that fit into your equation of what you perceive the political environment of this country to be? So in February, DNC elected David Hogg as vice chair. Democrats immediately had buyer's remorse, began threatening to, overturn that election. The Hill reported that members of the DNC have voted to redo its vice chair election, teeing up 2 separate votes for the position held by David Hogg and Pennsylvania State Rep. Malcolm Kenyatta. The vote to redo the election was 294 to 99. Now, I try to think in the minds of Democrats and how they justify this. And I suppose if I were a Democrat and I tried to justify this, I'd be like, well, but this is democracy because, see, we voted to overturn the last election. Well, why should that vote to redo that election count? Can somebody come along and say, you know what, we want to redo the redo vote? See, that this is the world of chaos you create. When you determine that elections only matter when the elite people in charge want them to matter, then that means that any and every election is up for grabs. Why should the redo vote have any more, authority over, the outcome than the one previous? I mean, why should it be any more solid? Why should it be any more official? Why should it be any more safe from just somebody else saying, nope, that one doesn't count either? Oklahoma DNC committee member Kalen Free, who ran for vice chair position and lost, filed a challenge in late February over the way that the vice chair election was conducted and so forth. And a lot of that was an attempt to say, oh, no, this wasn't because we regret the outcome. It's because we just found some what we believe technical errors. Oh, okay. They just happened to find these, what they argued were technical errors about the way the election was held once they decided that they didn't like David Hogg anymore. Now, I'm very interested to see what David Hogg's going to do now. This is the part I'm excited about. Is he going to declare political war on the DNC? I find it difficult to imagine that he is just going to quietly go away because his entire revenue stream is built off of this sort of stuff. I mean, he has no income unless he is out there as an activist. This is what he does. This is his separate little PAC that has all of this money that have been donated by Democrats to him, and this is his money. So if he becomes irrelevant, then that means he's going to have to actually find a real job. And frankly, I don't know anybody that needs a real quality employee that would actually hire somebody like David Hogg. So he's going to have to, in order to continue to, and I think he likes the attention as well, get the attention, get that revenue stream, make himself relevant in some political sense. And it clearly isn't going to be as a team player within the establishment Democrat Party. So what's he going to do? Is he going to say, oh, you thought I was a problem before when you could at least have some potential control over me? Well, you've just taken the leash off, pal. I, for one, am just pretty excited to see how all of that ends up playing out. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air Summer Heat has officially arrived in the Ozarks, and that means that your air conditioning system needs to be running at peak performance. And if your AC just isn't keeping up, don't wait until a small issue becomes a costly breakdown. And that's where Russell and the expert team over at Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air comes in. Whether you need just an AC tune-up, maybe a service repair, or a full system upgrade, they've got you covered. Their technicians, they work both on residential and commercial systems, and they're also available for 24/7 emergency service repairs, so you're never left sweating through the night. Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air is known for their reliable, efficient service and upfront communication. So before the hottest day officially hits, make sure to schedule your AC services with the Foreman team. Now you can visit foremanmechanical.com, or you can find all of their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
There's a posting from Kim Kardashian.
Oh, yes, I saw this.
And so she's against deporting illegals, including criminals, apparently. And she said, when we witness innocent, hardworking people being ripped from their families in inhumane ways, we have to speak up. We have to do what's right. And I love the response from Department of Homeland Security spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin. And she posted some of the mugshots of the people that specifically that have been arrested for deportation in the last 72 hours. And she asked the open question, with their convictions, their pictures, their crimes, which of these convicted child molesters, murderers, drug traffickers, and rapists would you like to stay in the country? These are just a few of the convicted illegal criminals who have been picked up in the last 72 hours. You know, they never answer that question. Or what if they do, they're like, well, those aren't the ones we're talking about. Well, those are the ones that are being arrested. These are the people. You may say you're not talking about these people, but you are talking about these people. You know, I also just, this is the dishonesty of these people that believe it is, and we're talking elected officials, the Gavin Newsoms. They are arguing against arresting these protesters, including people that block traffic. They are standing up for them, saying, we will continue to fight. We will stand up for those who are fighting. There are people, including grandmothers, who are in prison, have been for some time now, and are slated to stay in prison for years because they prayed in a hallway at an abortion clinic that the Biden administration claimed was blocking people from getting abortions. And so they'll convict them for 10, 15 years in prison. Now think about that for a moment. When you look at the images of the rioters and protesters that Democrats are defending, free speech, free speech, free speech. But a grandmother praying outside an abortion clinic, they fully support going to prison for years. Now, how jacked up is that? How sick is that? There is something deeply, fundamentally wrong with people who view what is going on in that way. There are some liberal Democrat governors that are starting to roll back taxpayer-funded health care for people who are in this country illegally. Oh, I'm sorry. Undocumented. Gavin Newsom in California, a state that he is so financially broken, went from a significant surplus to massive deficits, has had to eliminate, at least in some capacity, significant capacity, taxpayers paying for health care for illegals. This is also happening in Minnesota and Illinois. NBC News, this is their following report. Democrat governors seek to roll back state-funded health care for undocumented immigrants. A trio of states with Democrat governors viewed as potential 2028 presidential candidates have taken steps in recent weeks to freeze or cut government-funded health care coverage for undocumented immigrants. Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom of California, J.B. Pritzker of Illinois, and Tim Walz of Minnesota have largely attributed the proposals to budget shortfalls stemming from original plans to expand health care to immigrants without legal status. But the moves also occur against the backdrop of broader debate within the Democratic Party over how to handle immigration, an issue that dragged it down in the last election and that President Donald Trump and the GOP have continued to try to capitalize on. The latest development came in Minnesota on Tuesday after both chambers of the legislature passed a bill to end state-funded health care for undocumented adults. Newsom's plan in his 25-26 budget is called for freezing enrollment for undocumented adults to receive the full scope of the state's Medicaid program known as Medi-Cal. Meanwhile, Illinois remains on track by the end of the month to end a program called Health Benefits for Immigrant Adults that provided state-funded health care coverage for more than 30,000 low-income adults who are living in the state without documentation. Now, just look at the framing of this story. The framing of this story is essentially, hey, listen, Democrat or Republicans have capitalized off this issue. And so a combination of that and just fiscal realities is leading to some of these Democrat governors making this decision. No stories about a 4-year-old child on a feeding tube who is going to die without constant care, but is now going to lose that care. Where are all the stories about the people who are going to die because of Gavin Newsom, because of Tim Walz, because of J.B. Pritzker? Where are the numbers about all of the people that are in this country simply wanting a better life that are now going to die according to, some sort of algorithm or some sort of formula? The left loves to come with we were told Doge already killed 300,000 people. Some number some person came up with. That sounds like a good number. Let's use that. Where is that lens on this particular story? All of you protesters and rioters out there, why aren't you protesting this? We're talking about ripping away life-saving care for people who are undocumented in this country, the backbone of our economy. Not a peep, not a protest. And this is further proof the left doesn't ever care about anyone other than can they be used as a tool or a weapon to go after political opposition and to retain or acquire power. That is the only meaning any of us serve to the Democrats. No other purpose. These righteous people on the left that portray themselves as defending something so sacred when it comes to the, quote, rights of people who aren't in this country, that they have to protest, they have to vandalize. Well, unless it's a Democrat that is going to be stealing away life-saving health care from illegals, well, see, we can't protest that. We can't demonize that, can we? Because that's their side. Those illegals don't count. Just like human trafficking. Just like kids in cages when it came to Donald Trump being president and these kids in we care so much about, what about these children? These children ripping families apart. Till Biden becomes president. And then they're just shipping kids to sex traffickers all over this country. The Biden administration admitted they had a pipeline, a government pipeline of kids to a strip club that clearly was a human trafficking center. Openly admitting that they did not know where hundreds of thousands of these kids were. Not a word. No protest. No cries for the kids, because kids, sick people, needy people only serve one purpose to the Democrat Party, and that is to be used. And it's their behavior that proves that. I don't know. I can't think of any sort of argument in which someone on the left could say that's not true, because they prove it with their behavior. And the fact that you have 3 Democrat governors who, of course, and it's all political, all 3 of these individuals are floated as potential nominees, individuals that are running to run for the presidency. And what they don't want to do, and they know this isn't even as much about illegals, it is to some degree, but it's about completely financially destroying their states, of which they're already doing anyhow. But what the last thing they want to do, knowing that immigration is another issue that they are upside down on, is to try to run for president, especially if they get the nomination and end up in the general election, having run their state into the ground financially, largely because they were forcing taxpayers to pay for health care for illegals. So they cut it off. It's all political. So how many people are going to die in Illinois, in California, in Minnesota, all because of the political ambitions of these Democrat governors? That is a question I'm sure Rachel Maddow will not be asking, nor will Jen Psaki or Joe Scarborough. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Working with Emily was an absolute pleasure. This is from Kayla. From start to finish, we had the opportunity to both buy and sell properties with her help, and each experience exceeded expectations. The deep knowledge of the market, strategic insights, keen eye for value truly made a difference every step of the way. Beyond their expertise, they were a genuine delight to work with, professional, responsive, always looking out for our best interest. You're looking, maybe even not for you, somebody that you know, maybe family that's moving to the area. A lot of political refugees from areas like California come to Missouri, and they need help. They need to find someone. They don't know the area. Emily Johnson not only, of course, knows the area, but all the connections that one may need when it comes to selling or buying a home, like improvements to the home, foundational repair, roof repair, whatever it may be. She knows all those people. She knows who's good, who's reliable. And it's why she is the best of the best when it comes to buying and selling homes. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Text message. Would an illegal immigrant who's been arrested for a crime and convicted be considered documented? It's a good question. First and foremost, amongst the left, they would be considered a cause. And I think that they have demonstrated that with a great level of enthusiasm for some time now. Just to try and figure out whose side they're on. Just watch and listen. See you tomorrow morning at Scramblers. Friday Roadshow sponsored by